Today, I'm going to be looking at the motion sequencer in Wave's Alchemy Triaz as a way to make your beats more interesting and creative. This is particular to this plugin, but if you're interested in this process, at the end, I'm going to also show a way that you can achieve similar results using stock plugins in your DAW. Now, the motion sequencer in Wave's Alchemy Triaz basically allows you to automate the parameters of certain aspects within the plugin. Automation is something that we're actually all very familiar with. For example, we often automate the volume of certain instruments in our song or piece of music. For example, we make certain elements louder or quieter as the song progresses. And the motion sequencer in Wave's Alchemy Triaz allows that to achieve this over the sequence of the beat. In fact, it allows us to control basically any parameter within the plugin, as I'll show you today. So this is an instance of the plugin I've got here. I've created a beat. It's nothing spectacular, but I'm going to show how we can make it sound a bit more interesting and creative. So this beat has 12 tracks. I've used 8 of the 12 tracks. And let's hear how it sounds before we make any changes. Okay, that's how it sounds. Now let's see how we can use the motion sequencer to make it more interesting. The first thing I'm going to look at in terms of making the beat more interesting and creative is playing around with the stereo field. I'm going to do that using the hi-hat, particularly in terms of changing the panning sequence into a sort of ping-ponging effect. And we can do that using the motion sequencer in this plugin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the hi-hat, which is here. I'm going to right click on pan, this sort of parameter right here. I'm going to right click on that. I'm going to select motion sequence 1. Then I'm going to go to the sequencer. I'm going to go to motion. And you'll see in this first column here that we've linked the panning to the motion sequencer. Now you can change the panning by just manually using your mouse along the sequence that you've created. So in this sequence, you can see the blanked out blue is the actual sequence of the hi-hat that I've created in the drum here. That's just here. That's this sequence right here. And what we can do in the motions, we can change the panning to create that stereo sort of ping-pong effect I was talking about. Now, I've just done this with my mouse here. Let's just hear how that sounds. That's not super dramatic, but another way which I really like to do, and a really quick way of doing it, is Wave's Alchemy has this randomize button, which sort of randomizes the sequence in a way that you might not necessarily come up with yourself. So let's just try that. So if you keep pressing it, it sort of keeps changing up that sequence and randomizing it. So that's fine. And if we go back to the instrument here and look at this parameter right here, and let's see how the sequencer is changing that. So you can see it's being dragged left to right, sometimes in the middle. You can go in there and create a lot of fidelity with it, but for now I'm just going to leave it and move on. But you can really shape it as you like. Now, the next thing I want to do with a hi-hat is playing around with the pitch. I find that changing the pitch over the sequence of the beat with a hi-hat creates a lot of interest for the listening experience. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to pitch, found just here. We're going to go to coarse. I'm going to right click and I'm going to send it to sequence 2. We're going to go to the sequencer. And we'll look here under the second column, we're able to alter the pitch using the motion sequencer. Now I'm not going to draw anything. I'm just going to press randomize and let's hear how that sounds. I'll play it first in solo and then in the context of the beat. That sounds pretty funky, but I think in the context of the beat, it will sound much more interesting. Yeah, I like that quite a lot. I think it adds a lot more interest to the listening experience. Again, you can go in here and really alter these different parameters to your liking and get really sort of granular with how you do that. Okay, so we've looked at the hi-hat in terms of changing how it sounds. Now I want to focus primarily on this synth sound next. Now the synth sound is sort of the driving lead of the beat. Let's just hear that in solo. With this aspect of it, it sounds fine by itself, but I want to sort of draw you to the beauty of this plugin, which is that on each track, the sound is actually composed of 3 different samples. So you're hearing primarily sample B. If you look up to the black box here in the right-hand corner, the samples are represented by A, B, and C. And you can actually sort of make a blend of each sample. We just heard B, let's hear A. And the C. And you can make a blend of them. And you might find that a blend is enough, and that layering creates the interest that you're looking for. But for me, I want to go between these different samples and sort of create a different blend along the sequence of the beat. And the way we can do that is using the motion sequencer. So this basically, these plugins exist on an XY axis, so we can move between different blends of them. And in order to change them with the motion sequencer, we just right click here. We go, I'm going to assign motion X to sequencer 3 and Y to sequencer 4. Then we're going to go to the motion sequencer in the plugin. As you'll see, they're represented here. I'm just going to randomize both of these axes, and let's hear how that sounds. Firstly in solo. Cool. And in the context of the mix. Awesome. Okay, so already the beat is sounding a little bit more interesting and creative. I want to do a couple more changes using the sequencer. I think in order to further the interest of this particular sort of synth lead, I'm going to change another parameter, and that's the reverb send, which you can see here. With this parameter here, you can control the amount of reverb this particular track has. There's a creative way of sort of making the sound more interesting by sort of giving it lots of reverb and then taking that reverb away really quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click here. I'm going to send it to sequence 5. And then I'm going to randomize this. And let's see how that sounds. Maybe we'll do this in solo. It's quite subtle, but there's sort of, again, it creates a little bit more dynamic in the actual lead itself. It softens it when the reverb comes in, but then brings back its hard edge when it's taken out again. And I think in the context of everything, it sounds really good. Cool. The last thing I want to do is quickly change the kick and the pitch of the kick. This is quite subtle, and I think it will come out more when you mix the piece. But you can, I think changing the pitch of the kick in particular over the sequence gives it a little bit more sort of motion and interest to the listener. So again, we're going to go to the pitch of the kick here. I'm going to right click, I'm going to assign it to sequence 6. And I'm just going to randomize this, and let's see how that sounds. There we go. Great. Now let's just quickly hear a before and after of the 2 different beats. So before I started this video, I bounced the initial beat without any of the parameter changes. Let's just quickly hear that. Now let's hear the changes we've made. So to me, we've taken like a pretty basic, sort of uninteresting beat and given it a lot of character. And that's just through using the motion sequencer. Now, as I said at the start of the video, if you don't have Wave's Alchemy Triaz, I'm going to show you a way that you can achieve a similar effect just using some stock plugins in your DAW. I'm just going to show a few different examples as I'm not able to entirely recreate what I've done with the plugin. So I actually bounced the multi-tracks from the beat that we've been working on. Wave's Alchemy Triaz has this amazing feature where you can literally just export each individual track into a wave file, which is so awesome. It makes mixing so much easier, and it means you can really shape the sounds the ways you want. So I've exported the beats prior to any sort of motion sequencing. So it sounds like this. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the hi-hat, and like we did with the motion sequencer, I'm going to alter the panning. Now, just for the sake of this video, I'm going to do it randomly, but you could go in and exercise a lot of fidelity with this process. So just by holding Control and using my mouse, I can just draw in different panning sequences like this over the sequence of the beat. You can just see how that sounds. Cool. That's okay, you know. Again, you can go in there and make a lot of adjustments. You could also select a different part of the transport, just dragging your mouse here, and then, you know, by holding Control and Shift, you can alter different aspects like this. Let's just hear how that sounds. Yeah, so that just gives you a bit of an idea of how you can, you know, start to create some sort of stereo interest by ping-ponging the hi-hat. All right, now let's alter the pitch of the hi-hat. And I've just loaded up a stock plugin in Reaper called Repitch. And I'm going to select a parameter within that plugin. So I just go to Trim. I'm going to select the semitones here. That brings up the envelope in this plugin. And I'm just going to shape, again, using Control and my mouse to just shape some different parameters in this plugin. And if you look at the plugin here, you'll see that this semitones parameter will change along with the sequence of the beat. Again, this particular motion sequence isn't something I love, but you can see how you could really go in and shape this sound in a way that creates a lot of interest. Yeah, sounds pretty ridiculous. Okay, the last thing I want to do is quickly look at this lead that I bounced. So this is the lead. I've loaded up a stock reverb plugin, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to recreate that reverb send in the motion sequencer in Wave's Alchemy Triaz here. So I'm going to go to Trim. I'm going to select the room size envelope, and I'm just going to send the reverb in different ways. I'm going to quickly automate this and we'll come back. All right, I've just done a quick little automation. Let's see how that sounds. Okay, you know, that's fine. Let's hear it in the context of the mix. Remembering that this is where we started with. This is the stock beat prior to any of those changes. Now this is with the changes we've made using the stock plugins. Again, I don't necessarily love those particular choices, but it gives you an idea of the kind of changes you can make that sort of really elevates the creativity and interest in the listening experience of the beat. And I think it's a simple way where you can use the plugins that you've got in your DAW. So these principles will apply across whichever DAW you choose. And it's a powerful way of making sort of subtle changes that really make a difference in your music. And of course, this doesn't just apply to, you know, beats. You can use this process in whichever music making genre you're in. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful and I hope you liked it. And if you liked it, that's great. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in whatever I make next.